is on 2. Okay, so better say a joke.
Okay, do you know Charles II?
No.
That was the ugliest ruler in human history, and he looks just like Ondra. Really?
Which Ondra?
Me. Maybe,
Yeah. Google it. It's the same person.
Okay.
It's my noble ancestry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not planning to start a career as a Hugo Boss model. Not that I don't have the looks, but yeah.
But you will have a career in board games. Who needs a career as a model if you have that?
Well.
All right, let's start. Hello, everybody. We are at Czech Gaming in Czech Republic. Czech Gaming is an event hosted by CGE, and we are here to play new prototypes. So I had the chance to meet these two wonderful people. I have here Petr Časlava and Ondřej Bistron. That was
Exactly.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. The 2 out of the 3 authors of the new upcoming CG game Kutná Hora. And we are here to talk about the game, all about like how you came up with it, how's your collaboration, and yeah, what actually is Kutná Hora? Like for someone who doesn't know anything about the game, how would you describe it?
It's actually the place where I usually take girls for a date, because that's the city which is really close to a city where I live. It's like 10 minutes from my town, and it's the city with awesome history which we try to reproduce in our game.
Okay. I would say it's a heavy Euro. Like, would you agree with that? Or
It's a good game.
it's a good game.
It's a good game.
Definitely a good
It's
game.
a funny game. I wouldn't necessarily call it heavy. I don't know, but like
It is heavy. I'm not have a problem with heaviness. I think it's kind of heavy. But the Euro category, maybe that I have a kind of problem with it, because in Euro style games you usually expect you have everything in control, and you have a long-term plans, and you actually make everything like you want to do, and no one actually putting some stuff into your plan. And this is exactly the opposite, because everything what you do in Kutná Hora affecting every other player around the table. So people need to be okay with it. It's not usually part of the Eurostar games. I still think it probably is a Euro-style game, because we are using a Euro-style mechanics, but the experience, it's more for a people who likes interaction between players.
Right. And how did the idea for this game start? Like, who started creating this, and how was the collaboration after that? Or how did you start with the mechanic or the theme? How did it come together?
you know, about Kutná Hora, it's like important to mention that like today it's like a small town in the middle of nowhere. However, 700 years ago, this was like the place to be to earn the money. It was the bustling mining city with commerce. It was like one of the biggest towns in Europe. And then actually they say that up to 1/3 of the European silver production was coming from there. And it always fascinated me. And that was like the inspiration for the game. So like what we were trying to do is that we had this picture of Kutná Hora in that time. And we really wanted to create this feeling of busyness, of everything is in a move, everything is changing, everything is growing, everything is building. And we started with the idea actually, and then the game started to take the shape. So originally it was just me. Then Paul joined in, and then we took Peter. And in last 3 years, more than 3 years, actually, we are really like trying to bring the game to the best possible state. And I think now this is the moment when we are pretty happy about that, because the game can tell the story about the beginning of one of the most important cities of the medieval time.
For someone who doesn't know anything about the game, again, how do you briefly explain what it is about, apart from the fact that it's the city of silver?
Yeah,
Like, how would you describe it?
you can do it nicely.
I'm not completely sure, but I can try. So core of the game is action selection system based on double action cards. You usually have a cards in your hand and you can play them in multiple ways. And based on that, you are choosing some actions. And these actions can give you buildings at the end, but you have to acquire some rights to actually build that building. Then you need to have some space where to actually build that building. But eventually you will build some kind of structure, and that will give you access to some kind of income. So you will get some money after that. The game is actually shaped around that. There is a really huge part of that game which is based on dynamic economics. So there are some commodities like wood or silver, beer, and so on. And these can change price really, really often. It can go up, it can go down, and you need to actually adapt your strategies around that. And all these things are based on a real demand and offer is the other word. So you really have to take care about all these little details what other people do. And of course, there is some mining silver because it's a Kutná Hora, city of silver. So there is also mining.
But when we like our aim was to really simulate this real life economy. So like when something is in big demand and the offer is like narrow, then it simply costs more, and vice versa. And this is what we believe is like a very, very unique experience for the players, because like usually, I mean, if you have wood in a game, typically then it has the same value over the game. Just need to, I don't know, build the engine to have more, whatever. But this is not the case of Kutná Hora. So like once the offer is like over the need of the market, then the price goes down. And this is something what we believe is really making the game very unique. And we were always trying to start this design from the real thing. So we were always asking ourselves, okay, how the thing was working at that time, how the market works. And this really led us, so like the design was led by the idea that we really wanted to tell the story of the city. We wanted to tell the story of the real life economics that is always changing, and you need to adapt your strategy as often as needed, otherwise you are not going to win. So that was our aim, and I hope we succeeded.
So having that much player interaction was your goal from the beginning?
Believe me, there was like much more player interaction.
Yeah.
And and then we were using that, and we are still getting the feedback that the player interaction is like much higher, on much higher level than it's usual. However, like this is the level we are satisfied and that we see people appreciate and find funny. So like it was.
There are basically two approaches which you can have. The first one is long-term plans, and some people like them. I like them too. There are so many games which works in that way, and I appreciate them a lot. But there is another way how you can actually design your game, and that's highly tactical view, which means it's your turn and then you have to decide what's your best move. But you can't plan during the other turns because things are already changing, and then you need to do that again when it's your turn, so you need to see what's happening.
Yeah.
Basically, if I will name similar game based on that feeling, just the feeling, not mechanically, that's Adrenaline from CGE. So that's exactly the great example of game which can be similar based on that feeling. And actually, I work on adrenaline before, so this was another approach to actually reproduce that kind of thinking in board games. So I like we actually did it in this way. I like the other way too, but this way more suitable to dynamic economic, which is part of the game, because everything is changing, so you need to really adapt.
Yeah, and do the best thing at the given moment, not
Yeah,
just
exactly.
generally. Do you have a favorite mechanic in general, and is it in the game, or do you not follow game design like that?
It is not that we said, okay, I mean, at the moment, like every successful game has this mechanic, so like this is our way. No, we were really trying to pick the mechanics to fit to the story and to give the feeling that we really wanted. And base for that was very often, or 99.9% of the time, to really understand the history of the city, history of this medieval times, and that was our goal. So it was like that was the
I think for us, the most important part was how the interaction actually worked between players. Because you can have the negative interaction. So if I do something, I make your situation worse. On the other side, I can do something and I make your situation better. And we wanted to have basically all of these things together, but what we actually focus was to have interaction in a way like I'm doing something and it helping me, but also it helping some other player. And then maybe he will do something and it will helps me too. It's not cooperation because I'm doing that for myself, but as a side way, I helping to someone else. And that was really important for us when choosing how the game actually should works. And I think it's part of so many elements in the final game design. And I can feel many of pieces of that game works in this way. And I think some people even can have a problem with it, actually. We saw during a playtesting, some players don't like it because they expecting to do something which benefit just them.
yeah.
And then I will not do that because it will help me, but also that players do it. It's helping you in the first place. In the first place. So that was actually our thinking about the game design to create that kind of interaction between players. But there can be moments which make your situation not exactly great, and to actually make the best move at that moment. That's the way how to win the game.
Yeah.
And how long has this been in the making? You said 3 years? Or-
It's like actually more 4 at the moment. However, like I mean, if you would really see the first prototypes, and what is it today? That's like totally different
Different
game.
game.
Yeah, that's a
It's like
different game.
that's a different game. So like when we are, let's say this way, what you see here. So this is like on a table for 3 years. And since that time we are like really working on that and developing it piece by piece. So it has been like lots of development, lots of testing, lots of feedbacks, lots of iterations. I mean, yeah, and 3 years, that sounds like a lot. And if you put the time before, but we really wanted to bring the best experience, and then that simply took time.
Yeah, there were some moments when the development wasn't in such a rush. There were moments when we were developing really, really fast and changing many details about the game. And there were some milestones, for example, that dynamic economic, how that should work, because that was actually part of the game for almost very beginning. But the way how we actually work with our economic was completely different. At the very beginning, it was just a tab. Then some connected wheels shows up, and then some cards shows up, and all these approaches have a different benefits. But for us, it was like milestones on our way to actually make that game. So we can look back and we can see, oh, that was the moment when we had this, but in a different shape. So yeah, for us, 3-4 years, I think. But it depends how you look on that procedure. Sometimes it's really fast. Sometimes it's not that much fast. Sometimes you actually believe your game is complete,
Yeah.
but it's not.
How can you tell?
That's the beauty. You can't. It's the players will tell you. So it's for, and I think every designer knows that. It's like, okay, this is finished. This is my game. It works perfectly. It's smooth. It's everything is set. Then you will show that to publisher, and they will say, oh, maybe if you change this, and change. What do you think? It's complete. So, no, it's not. So you had, but for us, we never experienced the situation where you actually need to rebuild the game from points which are a part of the core game mechanics. It was shaping around. The core was always the same from almost the beginning was the same.
And that's the point, because like what is really a change, because like in my mind, like what we are really doing in last 12 months is basically fine tuning, because like we are not really, and of course like it might seem as a big changes, but it's more of a balance thing. But the core mechanics, they are like fixed and on the table like for 1 year. And then the last year we are really, with the help of course, with the help of the guys from CGE, we are trying to really develop the best or balance the best possible experience. However, the core mechanics are not changing. So there is like nothing new coming or nothing is really leaving the game. So yeah, I'd say the game is fixed, but Peter says I'm the optimist one. So like for me, the game is ready for 1 year, and then we're just fine tuning. And then sometimes it might seem as a big task, but it's not that we are changing the game completely.
And of course, the final tuning is the hardest part of the game development.
Yeah.
So, the final tuning sounds good, but it's actually not that much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Peter has the experience, so
I
like,
have a little background.
yeah.
You have been working with CG for many years in the
I
past,
would
right?
not say many, but
Several. Yeah. So you knew already the process.
yeah.
Is this the first game you have your name on the box, or?
Yes.
Yes.
There are some games where is my name inside the box. This is the first game where is my name on the box.
Yeah, and I guess for you, first time
for
as
me,
well.
that's the, yeah. And for Paul as well.
Yeah.
So this is our first game, I mean, for Paul and me, yeah.
Has this been like a dream of you, or?
No, I think I have like kind of normal dreams. I want my kids and my wife to be happy, and my family and friends be in a good mood. However, like since I was a kid, I kind of liked games a lot. Like I think everybody who is like involved in our field is like, this is something what you have in a package, like you like the games. And then I was like trying to design the games, and I went through this whole process, like playing Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, and then like trying all the classical games when they were published. And then I had a hobby of that's kind of strange, but when I was a teenager, I was like creating the maps of unexisting cities, how they were developing throughout the time. So and I know it's kind of weird, but I was just like just for myself sketching very realistic maps, including the tram lines and the metro stops of the cities that never existed. And then I was just thinking how they were expanding, where and why, and so on. So I kind of think this is maybe not a dream, but a logical conclusion of my hobbies and my personality.
You are such a weirdo.
Yeah, I know. But like this is like so relaxing activity when you have this A1 paper, and then you just start to really draw how the streets go, and where should be the tram stop, and where should metro go, and where should be the harbor. So I have spent like lots of time. Again, like this is maybe not a dream. It's maybe more. So it's not that I was like for 15 years thinking, oh, I would love to have a board game published. It was more that I really came to the point with like all this background that started to work on that, and then I was very lucky to find two good guys who were on the journey with me, and then we produced this together with CGE, of course.
Oh, that nice story.
Do you have any weird things from yourself that you think you brought to the game somehow?
If I can start, I mean, I'm a weirdo in the history. I'm a nerd, and I really love to. And you know, like, I mean, of course, like we are three, but like, of course, our strengths like in different things. So I would say like Peter's strength is like really this huge experience with game development, and then when we thought that okay, how to solve something, then he was coming with ideas instantly. He was like changing the mechanics for the better. I mean, that was just excellent. And then Paul is this guy who shoots, and then he is like, I would say, rather conservative, and sometimes you would say this isn't nagging, but it was not actually. It was like really helpful throughout the process. And I'm this historical nerd, and if I think the game has as much real life accuracy as possible. And I was like always like saying, okay guys, but this is not possible. I mean, we cannot have this kind of building there because it simply wasn't there. Right? So that was, and you know, like last year I had like this longer weekend with my wife, and then I had the best idea ever. So we went to Kutná Hora again to see all the buildings, and then we went like through the museum where you even visit the mine itself, and you know, so like I do it in my free time as well. So like this is my obsession, and I hope this story of the city with the real life economy that is something what I hope I brought to the game. Yeah.
I'm usually for the jokes.
No.
I'm just trying to everyone laugh.
Is there any joke in the game?
It will be, I
Yeah.
hope so. At this moment, it's not a final copy, but I hope we will hide few of them somewhere. It would be pity if there will be no jokes.
Yeah. No, I mean Peter is too modest, of course. Like this is you know, like I almost cannot imagine like how we would develop the game to what it is today, like without someone as experienced as Peter. So like it's really important to not only get the feedback from the players, but really to get this guidance. And then actually this is how we even started. So like we were coming to Peter and was like showing the game, and then like Peter from the beginning was just giving us the advice. Like he said, like guys, you need to decide, is it A or B, or you know, like what it is. And then the funny, and we were actually discussing it earlier today, that on our first visit, Peter said like, okay guys, if you want to take it seriously, here is the list of the games that you ought to play before like going further. And that was kind of funny, you know, like, and then we had like more visits, and then there was like a point after, I don't know, like a couple of months, and we said, okay, you should do it with us, because like that would make the thing much more efficient, and we kind of like clicked, so that was nice. So yeah, but anyway, it was like 3 more years, so
I guess there is only one question left. When can people actually get this game, you think, if you have any information about their release?
This year, 2023, I believe it is, at Spiele San, which is fall, I believe. And the game should be available in Europe, also in North America. We will try to do that.
At the same time?
Yes,
like
at the
in,
same time, approximately.
Okay.
Wish us luck. So it's kind of challenging, you know, all these things traveling around the world in these metal containers. I don't understand that at all, but CGE did. So yes, I believe they will do their magic and the game will be available. I really would love to see that game
for Christmas.
For Christmas around the world. That would be really awesome. But yeah, definitely Spiele San, but I hope at the same time it should be available in North America as well.
Okay. Good luck then with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time, guys.
It was a pleasure.
I hope the best for the game. I'm looking
you.
forward to the release. I guess the people who watch us as well. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.